بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صدق الله العظيم. My dearest, my most honorable and respected brothers, sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, we take this opportunity to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to glorify and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for once again enabling us with this unique and wonderful opportunity to come together in a house from among His houses for the sole purposes of worshipping Him, glorifying Him, praising Him, and ultimately to send salutations upon His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we pray that Allah Azza wa Jalla will continue to facilitate such kinds of opportunities for us in the future, inshaAllah. It feels like just yesterday that I was standing before you talking about the arrival of the upcoming month of Ramadan. It feels like just yesterday that month of Ramadan flew by in a day, really. So quickly. And at the end of that Ramadan, it feels like just yesterday we were here and we were celebrating Eid al-Fitr. It feels like just yesterday. Then we had Eid al-Adha. It feels like just yesterday I was standing before you and talking about the Eid of the sacrifice. And it's something that as we get older, move further along in time, the passage of time, it starts to go by very quickly. It's not something that we can control, and it's also inevitable. And the moment that we had is a moment that has gone. It is a moment that has passed. It is a moment that has left us. It's not a moment that we can capture again. No matter how many videos we have of that moment, no matter how many pictures we have of that moment, no matter how many memories we have of that moment. Once it is past, it's gone. We have to look forward. And as Muslims, this is why we have the beauty of qadr, of predetermination, of destiny in Islam. That everything that has happened, everything that is happening, everything that is going to happen, وَبِالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. That we believe that everything is good or bad is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever has happened, it happened the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judged it to happen, ordained it to happen. What's happening right now is happening because Allah Azza wa Jalla wants it to happen the way it's happening. And what's going to happen in the future, that too, whatever Allah Azza wa Jalla has ordained, that's good. You see, this belief, this level of iman in this simple principle of qadr, it can alleviate so many of our problems. Can it not? A lot of us, we get infatuated over what's happened in the past. Things haven't gone well for us. Oh, why did this happen to me? Why didn't it happen to me this way? Why didn't I get that? Infatuated over the past, we can't let go of it. On the other hand, there's some of us, right now, we can't get over the fact what's happening to us. Why am I suffering this way? Why is this happening to me right now? And then there will be others, in fact, we're all in these categories. Now, whatever happens to us in the future, we want things that we may not get. You see, there's a beauty of the statement. To be content in the divine decree is an amazing state to be in. To be content in whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for you is an unbelievable state to be in. It's a state that we should all strive to achieve, to be in a state where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with us and we are pleased with Him in terms of His divine decree. This is the meaning, the true meaning of رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. when talking about the companions, the Prophet ﷺ, he stated that they are pleased with him, i.e. Allah, and Allah is pleased with them. How are they pleased with them? They're pleased in whatever position Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed them. They're poor, it doesn't matter. SubhanAllah, it's a moment for them to have sabr. They're starving, it's a moment for them to have sabr. They're dying, they're ill, it's a moment for them to have sabr. Allah has blessed them with something, it's a moment for shukr. Any state, this is why we always mention, the ulama always mention, that this line between sabr and shukr, gratitude and patience, perseverance within that patience. This is a win-win situation for the mu'min. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Ajaban li'amri al-mu'min." Wondrous, how amazing is the affair of the believer. If something good befalls him, shakar, فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. Then he shows shukr, and this is good for him. وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّاءُ الصَّبْرَ فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. And if something bad befalls him, something that he regards as evil, why did this happen to me? Sabr. Then he has sabr. فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. And this is better for him. There is reward in both situations. You see? And this is a state that we aim to achieve. But how can we achieve it? We can only attain this type of contentment if we understand the true value of the time that we have, and how quickly the time is passing us by, how little time that we have in this world. How did the Prophet ﷺ describe himself? Did he describe himself as a great conqueror? No. Did he describe himself as a great influencer? No. Yet he was, but did he describe himself as such? No. He described himself as a musafir, as a traveler. And who is a traveler? A traveler is one who came from somewhere else and whose destination lay elsewhere. You see, we're not from this world. Although we act like we own it, we're supposed to be here, right? We're not from this world. Allah created us. When Adam alayhi salam was created, where was he placed? He was placed in Jannah. Afterwards, he was placed upon this earth. He was always supposed to be here. That was the divine decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he came onto this world. And his children, us, humankind, we populated this dunya to all corners. Where is our destination? How many people have lived? You know, sometimes we're so selfish and we forget this fact, right? This simple fact. How many people have lived? How many people are currently living and breathing right now? How many thoughts, hopes, aspirations, all of those individuals having hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, billions and billions of us, Muslims who believe in Him, non-Muslims who don't, and yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still provides for them. And yet we become so individualistic, so selfish, we think, Ya Allah, why are you not just focusing on me? It's a moment of reflection. That don't just, it's this when we allow time to pass us by and not take its just value, we are being extremely selfish. We're being selfish to the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us. So this is something that we have to consider. This is not something that we can control. Not at least the way we think we should be able to control it. You know, we try to stay young. We try to look, see, again, why does a person want to be young? You know, there's a saying in the Arabic language when we're teaching, لَيْتَ الشَّبَابَ يَعُودُ, right? If only youth would return. Why do we want youth to return? Do we want the difficulties of the youth to return? No. We're very selfish. We want the good things of the youth that we're not able to benefit from when we're older, right? When you get older and you get those joint pains and the back pains, and getting up becomes a little bit more difficult. Right? When you get older and suddenly you're not able to run that quickly anymore. Suddenly you're not able to do those activities that you're able to do so quickly. And so effortlessly when you were young. We want the good things. You know, we don't want the indecision of youth. Nobody says, Ya Allah, because we're wiser now as we get older, right? The more older you get, the more wiser you get. So naturally you were more indecisive when you were younger. You were less wiser. You were more ignorant when you were younger. Nobody desires the ignorance of youth. Nobody looks back and says, you know what, I was so ignorant. Ya Allah, make me that ignorant again. Ya Allah, I was so foolish, I want to be that foolish again. No. We want the good aspects of it, right? We want the beauties of it. We want the healthy body. We want the less grey hair. We want more hair on our heads when we were younger. We want all of the good things, but we don't want the bad things that came with them, or the things that we felt were more difficult in our youth. We can't control that. What we can control, and the way we, you know, there was a teacher of ours, and he said, you know, he was talking about that statement of Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala. Imam Shafi'i said that al-waqtu sayf, that time is like a sword, that if you don't cut it, it will cut you. And he explained the statement by saying that, how can you cut time? You can't. Imam Shafi'i did not mean this literally. What Imam Shafi'i meant when he stated that time is like a sword, if you don't cut it, it means that if you're not able to control it, it will control you. Time controls everyone. How can you grasp hold of time? Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us in the Quran, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. And he swears by time. And by time Allah Azza wa Jalla swears. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Man is going to be at a loss. If you try to challenge time, if you try to race against time, there is no race against time. Time will always win. Time passes by and never returns. Time continues to move forward at breakneck speed, feeling like it's going quicker and quicker as each day passes by. Each year passes by. When you were younger, you couldn't wait until you got older. When you were young, I can't wait until I'm 18 and I can do this. I can't wait until I'm this age and I can do that. I can't wait until I'm this and I can get... Now when you look back and say, I can't, Ya Allah, if only I could go back to those days again. This is the nature of man. This is who we are. This is, in a nutshell, if you want to talk about humankind, the selfishness, the greed, the stupidity, the ignorance, the arrogance, this is insan right there. It can be explained in just that. When you're young, what do you need, what do you want? Just to get older. And when you're older, all you want is to be young again. So this is, Imam Shafi'i explained that the way to control time, the way to grasp hold of it, is to benefit from every single moment, and to try and to make the intention to do good within every moment that we have. And if a moment that passes us by and we weren't able to make good on it, then think of the next moment that we can. And this is the meaning that he draws from this next verse. Where Allah Azza wa Jalla states, I swear by time, indeed man is at a loss, you will always lose, you're never going to win. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ, except those individuals. So everybody else is going to lose. Everybody else is never going to move forward. Everybody else is going to fail. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except those who believe, who have true. This, when Allah Azza wa Jalla states those who believe, He means those who have true faith. Unlike us, whose faith is weakened, is susceptible, is fickle. Allah Azza wa Jalla saying those with true faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and they work to do good deeds. وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, and they encourage one another towards haqq, the truth, and they encourage one another towards sabr, patience. Those individuals, if they race against time, they will always win. Because they won't stick to any moment that has passed them by. I know people, wallahi, within our communities, by Allah, there's people who cannot get over their past. There's people who have had things happen to them in the past. Perhaps those things were terrible. Perhaps those things were debilitating. But they're unable to get over them. The vast... I was looking into researching, and it seems a bit morbid, right? But researching into the reasons, a lot of the reasons and the conclusions that are drawn from suicide. Suicide is something that is on the rise, right? So many people, more people are killed by suicides daily than are killed by attacks and terrorist attacks. It's ridiculous how many people are resorting to ending their lives. That's a drastic step. It's always, and you've got to think like, it had to have been the last step for someone who took it. Of course, it is the last step, but in their mind, it's not like something went wrong. Forget this. I'm tired of this. No, they suffered, and it's not as if some suffered, of course, more than others. And sometimes we can look at it and we can say, well, that person didn't really suffer. I've suffered more than that. I know other people who have suffered more than that. They didn't resort to this. What is the reason? The reason was because that individual was unable to get over what has happened. Was unable to move forward and did not think that there was a way forward in life. They thought that the only way that this suffering comes to an end is if I end my life. I know, unfortunately, people who are Muslims who have taken that difficulty and decision, and we now shed tears for them. We pray for them, over this thing that they have done, and we try to understand what has happened. But again, a lot of the times it's all focused on what's happened in the past, and this is why the past is something that we should try to leave behind. We should make efforts to, and the best way that we can try to leave our past behind and what's happened in the past and the difficulties of it, if we focus on the here and now and the future. You weren't able to do good, that moment passed you by. Think about the next moment that you're able to do good. Think about the next moment that you're able to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to mention to you a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is a beautiful hadith. This is something that I've mentioned before, and we'll stick to this one hadith, and that's it, and we'll end the khutbah. It's a hadith reported by Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala, and he states that قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he states, اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس. Take advantage, take benefit of 5 things before 5. So take benefit of these 5 things before these 5 things come into play. And what are those 5 things that you should take benefit of? The first thing that he mentions is shababak qabla haram. Take advantage of your youth before your old age. Take advantage of the moments that you have. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions that the beauty of the youth is such that those individuals were mentioned as, or described as benefiting from the shade of the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, يَوْمَ لَا ذِلَّ إِلَّا ذِلَّهُ, on the day that there will be no shade except His divine shade. A lot of them concern the youth, the young people. The Prophet mentions شَابٌ نَشَأَ فِي عِبَادَةِ اللَّهِ, the young man who is brought up and raised in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet also mentions with regards to the man who is invited by a woman, and he is about to commit this immoral act, And then he says, "Inni akhaf Allah." He rejects it and says, "I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." You know, or a person who gives readily in charity, and charity doesn't mean just giving money. Charity also means good works, and you're able to do more good works when you're younger than you are when you are older. These concern young people. So the Prophet ﷺ is telling us, take advantage of this time that we have. Don't waste it in trivial pursuit. It's all about time, right? Take advantage of these moments when you're younger. You know, the truth is, and the difficult truth to bear, is that as we get older, we are more inclined to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're more inclined to spend time in the company of the righteous, in the masajid, recitation of the Quran, because we have more time for it. You know, the difficulty is when we're younger, we have less time for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be able to take some of that out for His divine worship. The second thing that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions is وَصِحَّتَكَ قَبْلَ سَقَمِكَ, to take benefit of your health before your sickness. Naturally, as you start to get older, more sicknesses, illnesses start to appear, the pains start to appear. Difficulties of the fickle nature of old age starts to appear, you know. So take advantage of this youth while you have it. Don't waste it in trivial pursuits. Don't waste it focusing on things that don't matter. Don't waste it on things that you're not going to remember 5 or 10 years from now. You're not going to look back on and say, SubhanAllah, I'm a better person as a result of that experience, as opposed to that experience took me nowhere. Take advantage of that. Establish good habits, because the habits, this is scientifically proven, the habits that you establish when you're young are the habits that you continue on unknowingly and subconsciously into old age. You know, subhanAllah, I was watching a documentary on what do you call that disease, the disease of when you're unable to, as you get older, they start to forget. Alzheimer's, subhanAllah. And it's so difficult, and it's so scary as an elderly that potentially it can happen to any of us, that when you reach a certain age and you're unable to remember your entire life, who your family members are, and who your children are, who your grandchildren are, who you are yourself. And there's no cure for Alzheimer's. But in the documentary they mention that there are certain therapies that are used to make that difficulty or that difficult time a little bit easier, and bring them back to their central selves, a person who is suffering from this debilitating disease. And some of the therapies included reminding those individuals of their habits which they used to perform when they were younger, which they perfected when they were younger, which they are subconsciously able to do without thinking. Subconsciously means without thinking about doing something, you're doing it. You see, when you start to drive, you're thinking about doing, when you're learning how to drive, I'm putting it, check all my mirrors, I'm putting it into first gear. From first gear, you're thinking about when you put it into second and how that transition takes place into third gear. You're focusing on every single movement, on every single action, because it's not natural, is it? Eventually, there comes a point when you've been driving for so long and you're so used to that, it happens subconsciously. You don't think about the things that you do. You don't think about the actions that you undertake. It just becomes a habit. And so what they would do is, those individuals who are suffering from this disease, they would take some of the habits that they developed when they were younger. For example, there was somebody who learned how to play the guitar. And what they did was, this person couldn't remember how to do a simple thing of picking something up. Didn't remember that he was drinking something and he placed it upon the table and he forgot that it was there. But when they placed that guitar in that person's hands, subconsciously, without thinking, he was able to play it. Or the piano in his hand, which he had mastered in his youth, he was able to play subconsciously. So the habits that we develop when we're young, they benefit us into old age. Forming healthy friendships, our scholars mention, Imam al-Bayhaqi, Imam al-Hakim is one of them. When he discusses this hadith, forming healthy relationships when we're young, those relationships that will benefit us. Look back. When you were young and you had friends and you thought that life began and ended with them. You thought, this is it. It's me and you together forever. Did we not think that? We had those friends. Come on, it wasn't just me. Right? We thought life, the day began with them, the night arrived with them. It was just us and them. Now when you look back, some of those friends, perhaps even all of those friends, you haven't spoken for years, decades for some. It isn't. Life doesn't begin with them. Life doesn't end with them. The day doesn't begin with them, the night doesn't come with them. No, it's not, that's not the way it works. But at the time, our ignorance and our foolishness made us believe that way. And for some of us who still have some of those relationships today and we benefit from them, those are the healthy relationships. You see, you can't have the Prophet described good company and bad company as a musk seller versus a blacksmith. That even if you remain in the musk seller's company without purchasing something from him, you're going to benefit from the sweet smells. If you stay in the company of a blacksmith without even working with him and doing the work that he is doing, you're still going to retain some of those effects. Once you have left, it's going to burn your clothes, make your clothes dirty, make your body dirty once you have left. So the effects of friendship linger, they continue. So those individuals, those bad friendships that we may have had when we were younger, they don't continue. Once we realize that they're bad for us, we end that friendship, don't we? If you know that you were, say you were eating something which you realize is bad for you, and you suddenly realize that what you were eating, it was making you sick. You were allergic to nuts, for example, and you're eating them, and once you realize that you're allergic to nuts, you're not going to eat nuts again, are you? Once you realize, prior to that you thought they were okay. So as you get older and you begin to realize that this isn't good for you, then you sacrifice it, you leave it to the side. And now those relationships that have endured, those are the healthy relationships. I'll go to the end of the hadith, and I think we'll leave it there. The Prophet ﷺ, he goes on to mention, after taking advantage of your youth before your old age, وَغِنَاكَ قَبْلَ فَقْرِكَ, to take advantage of your wealth before poverty strikes. وَفَرَاغَكَ قَبْلَ شُغُلِكَ, take advantage of your free time before you become busy, before Allah Azza wa Jal makes you busy. Because if you don't take out time, when people say, oh, I'm busy, I'm doing this, I'm working these 2 jobs, and I'm trying to make ends meet, I don't have time for the pleasures of ibadah. I don't have time to take out for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reason why you're having to work 2 jobs, and the reason why you're still not able to make ends meet, and you're still suffering from poverty despite making thousands and thousands of pounds, you're still stuck in debt. The reason for that is because they're not taking out that time for the worship of Allah. Because if you took out time for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He promises us. He said, one thing I can promise you, you take out time for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will never fall into poverty. No matter how much you have, it will suffice. It will be enough for you. It won't put you in any difficult position. We're not doing that. This is why we're suffering. And the last thing the Prophet ﷺ mentioned is وَحَيَاتَكَ قَبْلَ مَوْتِكَ. Take advantage of your life before your death. Death is an inevitable reality. No one in history has escaped maut. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every soul shall taste death. And this is exactly what it is. It's a taste. It's not the end of life. You know, there's a different form of life that continues. And that life, the hereafter, is what we need to be working towards. You know, we work in this life, what do? All it is trying to build up our bank accounts and our bank balances and our properties and everything that we have. For the day that we one day die, and what happens to that? It goes to our children, and it goes to our heirs, those who will inherit from us. That's all we work towards. Build up the bank account of good deeds. Try to add into that. You know, that's your true savings, which will benefit you in both this world and in the hereafter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me and you the tawfiq and the ability to act upon the noble teachings of the Quran, the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. For those of you who haven't completed the Sunnah first,